now I have my motivation. It's back and legs also, and I confidence for me, for my team.
So 2 weeks of defying Europe's finest linguists with some of the least translatable French ever mumbled into a microphone. It turns out Alexander Vinokourov speaks English. One more surprise on a tour that was turning the unexpected into the everyday. Anyway, at least the individual time trial established one thing. Nothing short of small arms fire was going to put Vino out of the race. Pretty much everything else, though, was still up for grabs as the race entered the Pyrenees. 200 kilometres starting in Mazamet, taking in the Porte de Paillere at a metre over 2,000, before climbing up to an altitude finish on the Plateau de Beilles near the Spanish border. The Alps may have the better public relations department, but the Pyrenees are often tougher, especially in a clockwise race like this year when the riders have already suffered through the Alps. Few riders seem to have suffered more without actually abandoning than Alexander Vinokourov, and it didn't take long for the analgesic euphoria of the previous day's time trial win to wear off.
And the cameras have now found Alexander Vinokourov after his great ride yesterday in the time trial. Well, the mountains have cracked him, and the wave, I think, says it all. His tour's over.
Juan Mauricio Soler was only wearing the polka dot jersey because the actual leader of the climbers competition was wearing yellow instead. By the time he went over the summit of the Porte de Paillere ahead of Michael Rasmussen, though, the Colombian had edged ahead. Ahead of Soler and everyone else on the final climb was the lone survivor of the day's escape group, Astana's Antonio Colom. He'd no doubt been launched ahead to help in the event of the Vinokourov attack that never came. Behind him was Soler and a select group of contenders, including Michael Rasmussen, Alberto Contador and a struggling Cadel Evans.
But Astana still have the leader on the road. How long can Popovic do this, Paul, before he does pop?
Well, it doesn't matter to him. He's thinking about the fact, Phil, that Team Discovery Channel or US Postal Service are undefeated on the slopes of this mountain. The race has been here twice before while they've been in existence, in 2002 and 2004. And on those occasions, it was Lance Armstrong who won the race. In 1998, it was Marco Pantani, and I'm sure Popovic is a man who knows his cycling history. Andreas Kloden looks to be suffering a little bit here, Phil, because of his accident yesterday.
I think he is. He's just hanging on here by his skin of his racing shorts, as Solar is also there at the back. Listen, a group now, Paul, 8 riders, pure class.
Well, Jaroslav Popovic gets out of the saddle. He will have heard that at the back Andreas Kloden is in difficulty, and he will put the hammer down a little more. Well, we're looking at 1 minute and 55 seconds. They're going to have to do something very special if they want to pull all this back together and actually win the stage. Kloden gets out of the saddle, tries to keep the gears ticking over. He knows he needs to stay here to hold on to his 4th place in the overall classification. Cadel Evans there in the pink jersey, just locked onto the wheel of Michael Rasmussen. Popovic is a man possessed here this afternoon. He's thinking only about his team.
Just looking here, Johan Brunel on the radio has just told Popovic that Kloden has been dropped. That's why I don't like the radios, Paul. As we're now seeing Kloden unhitch at the back and Popovic drive that little bit harder. Very shortly, Popovic will be dropped, but he'll have done his job. 10 kilometres to go. We say 9.5.
Well, we say 9.5. They've come through that 10-kilometre to go point, and they're coming again, Phil, to the steeper part of this climb. Is going to kick up again to around about 8.8%. Still, this is turning out to be a very select group of riders. There you can see on the front, Popovic, Contador, Rasmussen, Cadel Evans, Kashakin, all of the big names, and popped in there just on the side there is Levi Leipheimer, still looking very comfortable and still well up there.
Let's get on the radio and tell Popovic Kloden isn't dropped, he's on the back.
Well, you know, Kloden is a strong rider. Don't ever forget he's finished 2nd overall in the Tour de France, and he's a proud man too. He's probably hurting quite a bit because he crashed pretty dramatically in the time trial yesterday, but still managed to finish in 3rd place.
Well, I thought they dropped team time trialing from the Tour de France, but we've got one going on at the back there. And now this is the poise for the moment. Wait for the attack. His Contador is poised here. He's swung right. Rasmussen's looking around for reaction. Cadel Evans doesn't need to react yet. This is the first time, but it looks to me as though Rasmussen is being isolated now. Now it's showdown time at 9 kilometres to go, and Kloden is in the red zone once more.
And I tell you what, Alberto Contador is having a bit of a hard time trying to follow the pace being set by his own teammate, because he too is getting unhitched with Carlos Sastre.
You know, we always say it, but the Pyrenees are different to the Alps. Bodies always react differently. Levi Leipheimer says the Pyrenees is where I'm going to go. And he's in that little group now. They've got Cloden in difficulty, but he refuses to be finished off.
Well, he will not give up. He'll fight his way back into this race as much as he can. He started the day in 4th place in the overall classification. But what a performance that's being done there by the man at the front, Jaroslav Popovic. And I tell you what, Alberto Contador has come out back into the group as well.
Well, Popovic is doing the ride of his life. The man who was dropped on the previous mountain came back and is now doing the job of a super domestique and still hanging on there. He's just hanging in, is Andreas Cloden. Even the greatest athletes suffer like they've never suffered before when they ride in the Tour de France.
It's important today to stay in contact. If he eases now, he'll lose himself a couple of minutes before the summit of this climb. Contador looked in difficulty, so too did Carlos Sastre, but again the gradient changed and smiled on those two riders at the back from Spain, and they were able to pull themselves back into this group. Nobody, though, so far, Phil, has shown any sign of worry to the man in the yellow jersey, Michael Rasmussen, who just sits there and says, OK, guys, you just get on with it.
It's up to Rasmussen to attack. This is a mountain day ticked off and no time gains. He's got to go, otherwise Cadell is going to eat him alive on Saturday. Let me just tell you, up ahead, we haven't forgotten about the riders. Column is still on his own. He leads by nearly a minute over Chiruca and a minute 15 over Gutierrez. And then we come back to this group we're looking at now at 1:38.
Well, everybody now is concentrating. Rasmussen is wondering, is anybody going to try and attack me here, or are they just going to try and wear me down? He just sits there looking over his shoulder. He's listening to see if he can hear the whistle of the tyres as somebody tries to attack. Kashakin is over there on the left-hand side, and he started the day in 6th place in the overall classification.
Just looking down the list here as we move towards the top, we've got just on 8 kilometers to go and about 5 miles to go to the finish. This isn't Cloden, this is the leader now on the front, and he's still trying to ride away with it. You see, Astana are still taking something from this Tour de France without their team captain.
Well, we saw when they came into the start of this Tour, Phil, that they were a strong team. We saw them in the Dauphiné Libéré 2 weeks before the start of this race, and we knew that they were going to be a team to be reckoned with. This is Chiruca. He's the chaser on the road, and he is struggling to stay in contact with the lone leader. And I have him down at around about a minute and 15 seconds. Jose Ivan Gutierrez is a little bit further back, but there is the yellow jersey group right on his tail.
Yes, Gutierrez is the next to go. That leaves 2 men up front here as the motorbikes take their turn to get through. There's Cloden still trying to hold them in sight, just fighting now to limit his losses here as the pressure goes on again. I would say that the boys in that little cluster, from that cluster comes the winner of the Tour de France on Sunday week.
I don't think anybody's going to criticise you with a remark like that, because certainly they are proving to be the strongest men in the Tour here this afternoon. Denny Menchov has been a strong man, but he was a strong man for Michael Rasmussen. Rasmussen has not showed any signs at all of weakness, but Team Case d'Epargne here this afternoon with Alejandro Valverde and Oscar Pereiro have been blown out of the bike race. They are losing currently a minute on the yellow jersey group.
Well, if looks can speak, that's told us everything here. This man is in trouble, Valverde. Rasmussen is not in trouble. He's cool, he's riding like a great climber, but what is happening, and there was a little switch there with Carlos Sastre. What I'm trying to say, Popovic has gone. Well, what a ride he's done. He'll be slapped on the back, and now it's a move by Levi to stretch him, and look who's going. Maurizio Sola straight on the wheel, the man I believe will win the stage today, and he's marked by the yellow jersey.
Well, he accelerated immediately. Great job of work by 118 Jaroslav Popovic, but the sad thing is you work hard like that. Contador's gone.
It's the old Discovery 1-2. Levi goes, Contador takes up the gritting of the face by Carlos Sastre, who looked to be in trouble, but he's gone. Rasmussen's answered, Cadell Evans is answered. 4 men going clear.
And Juan Maurizio Soler was grappling himself back up to the tail of these riders. Cloden now has no way at all of responding to these accelerations. Kashakin has gone too.
This, Paul, is a race of great cyclists who are throwing everything at one another here. And now they've caught, is that Chiruka they've just gone by?
They've just gone by Gutierrez very rapidly. They've just caught Chiruka. He's out of the back. There's only one man in front of this group. Contador looking nervous, wants to get a lone lead if he can. He'll keep accelerating. Yep.
No, he's gone. Contador's react here. Now they've got to come. The yellow jersey is looking for time. Cadel Evans rocks and rolls. He's straight across the gap. They're splitting the 6 now. Evans joins on. Contador looking for the inside of the corner. Rasmussen knows he's got to get time.
He has to get time on everybody, and now we're looking a little bit further back. Jose Ivan Gutierrez was in the breakaway a little while ago. Now he's gone straight out of the back. This is Andrei Kashakin. He was looking comfortable a few moments ago, but now his foundations have been cracked.
When did we last see a stage of the Tour in the mountains like this? As now the rider, there's poor old Chiruka, doesn't know what the heck came past him. And it's the rider in the yellow jersey now, and Contador has mastered him. Cadel Evans is hurting, but he's hanging.
Well, he's pulling back every time the acceleration comes from Michael Rasmussen, but Rasmussen cannot get rid of the man in the white jersey, Alberto Contador. Contador is a great climber, a man who knows just how to accelerate. But a man with experience is the man who wears number 31. Carlos Sastre has seen this before. He's been here on many, many occasions, and he just lets them carry on with it and pulls himself back into the race with Levi Leipheimer and Soler.
Well, wait for the next attack from Rasmussen. This is how climbers work it here. They've eased because it didn't work, then they'll raise the acceleration again. He's lifted the tempo once more, and the second time sometimes kills them off. Contador is there. Now Rasmussen looks again. This is like a sprint on the track. They're watching each other. Rasmussen just rests. Contador still in control. So too is Evans. Leipheimer's back in. And the Colombian here would like some water. I'm not sure he's allowed anymore now.
Not allowed to take drinks on board at this stage of the game. We're looking at 6.8 kilometers to go. This man, number 219, Juan Mauricio Soler, Phil, is in all kinds of agony. He probably can't believe that he's battling it out at the stage of a Tour de France like this with the big men who are right up in the overall classification.
Well, it's going to be a high finisher in Paris if he keeps this riding up. He's 22nd at the moment. There's the list of the 6 riders. Add on the name of Soler down there as well. And there it is. Well, a tremendous ride. The USA flag for Levi Leipheimer almost blocking out a view of the summit of the plateau.
Well, this is Kloden and Andrei Kashakin, and Levi Leipheimer could be making a pretty good operation here this afternoon because he started the day behind Kloden in the overall standings by around about 1 minute and 3 seconds. If he gets to the top, that much ahead of him. Now there's the move by your man Soler.
Soler has gone. They may not react yet after him because he is just a carrot and has no... He can't get yellow tonight. They're still watching each other. He sits 20 seconds, nearly 11 minutes behind Rasmussen, and that's why he may win the day. But no, Rasmussen's after him, ripping away, followed by Contador, and Evans, the limpet, is on the back.
Well, Cadel Evans cannot give these guys any gap at all. Rasmussen wants the stage here this afternoon, Phil. He wants to win in the mountains. Soler is pouring water all over himself, trying to calm and cool down those muscles of his, while Leipheimer has to respond. He really is gangly on a bike.
Well, he's terrible style. This reminds me of Robert Alban of years gone by. You know well as your teammate, Paul. He's slowed down now. They're all marking each other again. They'll let Levi back into the action. And now they'll wait and attack again. Sastre got back.
Well, this is amazing. This really is a battle of climbers. The acceleration, deceleration, I've rarely seen this kind of a battle before. But there you can see they're all waiting now for the next man to move.
It is absolutely incredible. 5, 6 of the greatest climbers. Nobody can break anybody. They're all launching attacks. When they realise they've been countered, they all slow down. If Kloden can keep stuff, and here he goes again. Now this time he may have it. And where is he finding the strength from?
Well, you know what? They do not really need to chase that man Soler because he's so far down in the overall classification. But it's Contador who wants the victory this afternoon. He says, no, mate, I want the win. And Leipheimer does not have the ability now to lift it up. And Alberto Contador has seen that he's not got the gap. And he says, come on, you guys want to win the stage, you go. So Rasmussen says, all right, I will.
And Sastre looks to be hanging at the back now as they continue to go. But Rasmussen comes up on Juan Mauricio Soler. The others behind are still hanging, but now Rasmussen this time tries to put it on. They've got Soler on the defensive. He needs half a kilometre to recover. He'll just have to hang there and wait and hope that they slow down again.
Well, you know what? When Barlow World were given a wild card selection into the Tour de France, I don't think the organisation...
They slowed down again. He's coming back.
I don't think the organisation knew, Phil, that they were going to get such a battle from that team. Robbie Hunter has taken a stage victory. Soler has taken a stage victory, but he's an integral part of the Battle of the Pyrenees this afternoon.
Well, there they are, 5, and very shortly it will be 6 because Leipheimer is climbing back into the picture. He sits 5th overall if they keep on doing that. And there goes Contador. The yellow jersey this time says to Cadel Evans, well, you chase him. He's only just behind you overall. Now there's a state of confusion.
Well, Contador, look at this. He's out of the saddle. He knows now that he's got the gap. This is what he wanted a couple of days ago when we were in the Alps. He wanted to fly free and get himself a lone lead on the way up to the climb of Tignes. And now it's up to Rasmussen. He says, I know you're dangerous, Contador. I'm coming after you. And Evans again struggling to stay on the wheel. And Leipheimer, Phil, almost got himself back into contention with those riders, but then he goes again.
Well, it's a big gamble by Evans. He's a minute 31 ahead of Contador in the standings. He can afford to let him run a little bit, and it's not the case for Rasmussen, so he's had to react. And so the first 3 riders on the classification in the Tour de France are now the first 3 riders, and Evans, I think, has cracked.
Well, he's cracked a bit. He doesn't want to push himself too much into the red zone. He could not take the accelerations of these 2 climbers. Alberto Contador and Michael Rasmussen have thrown caution to the wind, and they are going at this as if it's the last battle of the Tour de France here this afternoon. So Evans now bows his head a fraction. What he's got to do, Phil, is try and recover somehow.
And
try and get himself into a situation where he can actually ride himself into his rhythm and not lose any more time.
Now, advantage Rasmussen. He's got to keep on working. He fears Cadel Evans. Cadel Evans can beat him in the time trial. He needs second. I think he needs about 3 or 4 minutes before we leave the Pyrenees over Cadel. So he's going to have to go again very shortly. But that acceleration's hurt just about everyone.
It's hurt absolutely everyone. We kind of forgot the Tête de la Course, the front end of the bike race. Antonio Colom is now, Phil, not looking at a massive gap. He's got 30 seconds over these 2 riders, Michael Rasmussen and Alberto Contador. This is a magnificent battle of the climbers. We talked about the Tour de France on the flat stage, and we've got so many sprinters in it. I don't think we've ever seen so many climbers over the last few years.
We had nothing like this in the Alps. We got it in the Pyrenees. They've been waiting for what is a most difficult stretch of riding now. We get a rest day in between 3 awful days in the mountains. 2 still to come. Just around that corner now has gone the race leader. These 2 are chasing him.
Well, what you say there, Phil, is completely true. They're fighting this out as if it's the last mountain stage at 5 kilometres to go. Do these men not know there's a monster stage tomorrow?
They've had no choice. They're scared of what Evans can do in the time trial. 5 kilometres to go. 5 kilometres still to go for the leader. And they've thrown just about everything they've got at each other.
This is unbelievable. Antonio Colom had around about 3 minutes advantage at the start of the climb. Valverde's losing huge chunks this afternoon. So too is Andreas Kloden, but the yellow jersey group with Alberto Contador, the best young rider in this race, is only 30 seconds. Well, in fact, it's less than that. It's 23 seconds at 3 miles to go.
Well, will they catch him? Because these 2 have had to slow just a little bit. They've started shadow boxing again. Rasmussen is waiting till he senses the younger rider in white is hitting the pace, and he'll hit him again. Here comes the chase group. Evans is on the front of it, and they are 44 seconds off the leader.
Well, Cadel Evans is now finding his own rhythm. He's hurting himself. He's got to ride a time trial. He rode a very hard time trial yesterday and got himself 2nd place. He knows he won't get any help from the other guys. He has got to ride for his position in the overall classification. He started the day in 2nd, and Carlos Sastra's seen the weakness.
Well, those 4 need time to recover, while these 2 are trying to get up to the leader now. And they've all attacked, in fact, Cadel Evans, and he's going to have to fight to stay in touch. Evans now, for the first time in this year's Tour, is in trouble. And Kloden still has a little help with Kashikin down the back, but they are much further down the road now.
Well, everybody is pretty much on the defensive. Cadel Evans was attacked. He was doing all of the pace-making to try and pull himself back into this race. His team manager now must try and calm him down. Don't panic, my son. Get yourself into a rhythm. Just ride yourself over these last 4.5 kilometres, because if he tries to follow these accelerations now, Phil, he could see that gap of seconds turning into minutes.
Yes, limit your losses. There's plenty more mountains still to come. And he's not going to lose huge time, providing he doesn't completely hit the wall. Look at this, Rasmussen even encouraging Contador here, because Contador is looking for second place in the Tour right now. And Rasmussen is keeping all of his gains over Contador, which at the moment is 2 minutes and 31 seconds.
Well, Mr. Gangly at the back here, Juan Mauricio Soler is all over the back of Levi Leipheimer. Leipheimer looks very comfortable. He doesn't look under any stress at all, but he just cannot respond to the accelerations of the climbers. Carlos Sastre started the day in 7th place overall. He too could see himself climb up in the overall classification. How many times have we seen that face over the years?
Well, the perspiration running off these riders' faces are like waterfalls today. Coming up to the 5 kilometres banner, that's for the Valverde group. They're a long way back. We're heading up to 4 kilometres, and the count on 4 kilometres now. This is Column coming through. He'll see the 4 kilometres and still surviving, but how much longer? Because they're right on his back wheel here.
Well, there they are, just around the corner. He won't have very much more than a 10-second advantage at 4 kilometres to go. And when he sees the yellow jersey and the white jersey, Phil, he will be a broken man. But for these two riders, they're riding away from the rest of the field in the Tour de France this afternoon. And I think the man we're looking at here, 1-1-2, he might not win the Tour de France this year, but next year or the year after, he's going to be right on the top step of the podium.
Well, if he rides like this, he might win it this year yet. He's not a rival right now. He's just sort of encouraging each other here. It's two men against the rest, and then they'll decide later whether they have to fight it out between themselves. We're going back down the road here to the Evans group now, and Leipheimer won't help because he's got a teammate in Contador ahead.
Carlos Sastre, he's known glory in the Pyrenees before. Looking over his shoulder, he flicks his wrist there to say, come and work with me, but he's not going to get any help at all from Levi Leipheimer.
Oh. Pretty fit athlete there as we go down, back up to the front here, as we see the yellow jersey and the white jersey, the best rookie and the leader of the Tour, just getting into their sights now. The hero of the day, Antonio Colom, isn't going to see the plateau on his own. The two principal players are right up on him.
I think it's absolutely phenomenal the way Alberto Contador rides. He's the man who showed the most aggression here, but the yellow jersey, he knows that if he wants to win this Tour, Phil, every time and every stage that goes uphill, he's got to build on his advantage, because he will not win the final time trial. He will lose huge chunks of time. Contador now comes up and sets the pace-making, but I wonder how much longer number 192, Antonio Colom, can stay in contact with these two men.
Well, yes, and let's hope he can, but it's unlikely that he can hold them just for a while. He might get third on the stage as we head up into the last 3 kilometres now. That's about 2 miles still to ride, and Contador has been absolutely brilliant today. The crowd have had his name all over the road here, so they're expecting this. He had it planned.
Well, he knew that this was a climb that would suit him. He knew that he had the acceleration on the steeper slopes there. There's a bit of a gap going down to the next group on the road, and there it is. That's Carlos Sastre, Levi Leipheimer and Juan Mauricio Soler. They are looking at around about 25 seconds. Cadel Evans at 45.
Cadel is going to have to make that up. He's not writing himself out of the Tour de France today, but this first day in the Pyrenees has been mano a mano, and Cadel tried and tried, and they cracked him. At 3 kilometres to go now, we've got 2 leaders, and they haven't attacked each other since they got clear.
Well, they're coming to the slightly easier slope, if you can have an easy slope after 15 kilometres of climbing. Here, the gradient slips into just 7%. The final kilometre is at 6.3%, so we're going to be treated to a big battle between what I feel this year, Phil, are the 2 top climbers of the Tour de France.
There are small time bonuses, as there are every day, for the first 3, 20 seconds for the winner, and that's for that reason they can't share the win. They've got to fight for it. 20 seconds for first, 12 seconds for second, and I think it's 8 seconds for third.
That's an important thing to remember for these two riders, but Michael Rasmussen now, he's not got to think about winning the stage anymore, Phil, because he has to think about time. Every time this race goes uphill, he's got to think about the time he puts between himself and Cadel Evans and Andreas Klöden, because those men are great individual time trialists. No worry at all, says Alberto Contador. I've still got plenty of fire in these legs of mine. The Spanish supporters are all behind me. Cadel Evans at 3 kilometers to go has lost himself almost a minute, and he could be losing his second place overall.
Well, he's got to lose 1:31 is what he's got to lose, but there is that small bonus. He's very close to slipping a place here. Temporary hiccup, I think, but we'll see. The Danish flags are flying, and the Danish man is the one in yellow.
Well, it's getting a bit precarious here. The fans are getting a little bit too close. But for Alberto Contador, he's thinking about victory on the stage and climbing up into second place in the overall classification. At around about 1.5 kilometers to go, they will start to feel safe. They'll get into the barriered part of the course. But Contador, Phil, looks just so easy. He's out of the saddle. He's dancing on the pedals, as you would say, with an incredible amount of ease. Further back, Cadel Evans is struggling. He's using a much bigger gear. He's trying to find a rhythm, which is just not comfortable enough for him to find.
And Cadel wants the finish now, and he wants it as fast as it will come to him. He needs a recuperation. He's done for the day. These boys have slowed a little bit, but Rasmussen said something to Contador. I think he says, you do the work, and Contador says, no, why me? You do the work. They shouldn't be arguing like this. And Rasmussen really must make Contador work too. Otherwise, there they are. There's that discussion. And goodness knows what language is in, because Contador only speaks Spanish.
Well, he speaks a little bit of English, a bit of confusion now as they go through. Just listen to the crowds. It's almost deafening, the tunnel of noise that these riders are going through. And I think that Alberto Contador, Phil, actually feels that Cadel Evans is now being picked up here by Andreas Klöden. So Cadel Evans is actually showing his first sign of weakness on the 14th stage of the Tour de France. We've never seen him show any sign of weakness at all since we left London.
Well, there's 2 more days of mountains, and I have to tell you, they are harder than this day. But this day has been a big sort out on the climb of the Plateau de Beilles. An acceleration by Rasmussen, and Contador's on him at 2 kilometers.
That's what it was all about, that discussion. Alberto Contador is not happy with Michael Rasmussen. He's saying to him, if you want to win the stage, mate, you go to the front. You've got to get the time. I'm going to sit here because I want to win the stage for Discovery Channel, and I want to win the stage for Spain.
Well, those motorbikes, thankfully, have now been pushed away here. We should get a true sprint, but Rasmussen, he wants Contador to come through. I'm not sure Contador will here.
He keeps flicking his shoulder there, his arm. He says, come on, keep working with me. But I think they've lost the fraternity that they had when they set up this move going clear. I'm not sure that Alberto Contador is very happy at all with Michael Rasmussen, and he's going to sit there because he knows in the back of his mind he starts the day 2.5 minutes behind Michael Rasmussen. He knows Michael Rasmussen needs time, so he's going to force the Dane to do all of the pacemaking.
Well, watch out, because these 3 might claw away. There he goes up on the inside. There'll be no acceleration. The other 2 are fully committed, and this man could take advantage of the slowing of the 2 riders at the front. It'll have to be pretty special, I think, even for him. But he's off again, because at the moment he's losing his lead he gained earlier in the King of the Mountains. It's going back to Rasmussen.
This is a man who's come to the Tour de France for the first time ever. He's never seen these mountains before, Phil, but he's absolutely not afraid of them in one little bit. Cadel Evans is 1 minute and 20 seconds down at 1 kilometer to go to the finish, so he looks as if he's going to lose his second place in the overall classification to the man lying in second place there. But this man, as you said earlier, Phil, might spoil the party for the stage victory.
If he can get up there, he might confuse them. Here's Cadel, a bit lower down the slopes. He's cracked at 1.2 kilometers here. He probably, with the bonuses, at least will lose, for the moment at least, second place overall. He's now with Andreas Klöden and Kashikin. And what on earth has happened to Vinokurov now? Washed away, I would think, because this has been a dual battle with everybody else out of it. There is 1 kilometer to go. Contador refuses to help the maillot jaune. The maillot jaune has got to work because he wants time.
Well, for the maillot jaune, Michael Rasmussen, he must ride as hard as he can to get time over everybody else in this race. because he will not ride a final time trial like the time trial he rode yesterday. Alberto Contador knows this. He's riding like a tough poker player, saying, mate, you want to win the Tour de France? Well, I want to win this stage, so you go and get as much time as you can. We are looking, Phil, at only about 20 seconds to this man who is currently in third place on the road. Juan Maurizio Soler. Yes, he does remind me of Robert Alban, a man who was my teammate in the Laraduc days in the 1980s. He cannot look good on a bike, but I tell you what, when it goes to going uphill, he knows how to do that.
Well, can he catch those two? If they slow down to gets ready for the finish, he'll be on them and he'll steal the stage. But at the moment, Rasmussen is committed. He's no choice. He's racing for time gains, particularly on Cadel Evans. So he, in effect, is having to give the stage away here to Alberto Contador. But this first day in the Pyrenees has shown us Rasmussen is a pretty solid leader of the Tour de France.
He's also learning the hard way, Phil, that when you've got the yellow jersey on your shoulders, when it comes down to decision time, you don't have any friends at all. You've got to assume control yourself. You've got to prove that you are a great champion, and that's why he has to do all of the work. 500 meters to go, and Alberto Contador is getting ready for the explosion that he hopes is going to give him the victory of the stage.
Well, Alberto Contador, the man that had the serious accident which almost cost him his life, is now looking set to get the victory.
Well, this has been a certain amount of damage for everybody here this afternoon. This is Carlos Sastre. He started the day in 7th place. He's now been left behind, and Michael Rasmussen is accelerating inside of the final 400 meters. There on his wheel, there's Alberto Contador. Contador wants the stage victory if he can, but he's going to have to do something special. Michael Rasmussen here has got the acceleration, and Contador comes up alongside him. The young man from Spain who wants the victory here this afternoon. He knows this finish. He came and looked at it very early on in the year, but Alberto Contador has got the victory that he wanted ahead of Michael Rasmussen. He wanted this win this afternoon, and he's got it ahead of the yellow jersey, and he may well have got himself 2nd place in the overall classification as well. Hats off to this man, though. Juan Maurizio Soler has come up to the line, and what a great ride by him. He wants a few more points in that King of the Mountains classification and crosses the line in 3rd. Levi Leipheimer is 4th, and now it's all a question of the clock, because next on the road is going to be Carlos Sastre. 36 kilometers the stage. That's not bad for a big mountain stage here this afternoon, because there we have Carlos Sastre in 5th.
These two are the losers today. Cadel Evans coming up with Andreas Kloden, and we'll look for the clock to see what it says of the clock. 1:17 has gone, and there he is already on the phone to his folks. I just won a stage of the Tour de France. I'm now 2nd overall in the race.
Well, Andreas Kloden today was also put into difficulty, and I think, Phil, because of that crash he had in the individual time trial yesterday. Cadel Evans too rode a brilliant individual time trial. That will have hurt his body as he makes his way up to the finish line. I don't think he'll try and come round Kloden here. He's happy to get to the top there. The clock stops for him at 1:52 seconds.
A bad day for Cadel Evans, a good one for Contador, and perhaps an even better one for Michael Rasmussen, despite losing 8 seconds to the Spaniard in the sprint for the line. With bonuses, both men had taken over 2 minutes from Evans. Bonus seconds were a bit moot by the time Alexander Vinokourov rolled over the line. He'd lost 28 minutes 50 and all hope. Alberto Contador, meanwhile, was full of hope. Stage winner in his debut tour, wearing the white jersey of the best young rider, and still with a chance of being best overall. He explained the rolling negotiations with Rasmussen on their final climb.
Hubo mucha charla entre usted y Michael Rasmussen en los últimos kilómetros. ¿Qué decían ustedes?
Bueno, pues en principio habíamos hablado para colaborar y sacar la máxima diferencia entre él y yo con respecto al resto de rivales, sobre todo Cadel Evans. Pero a 1,5 kilómetros me ha decidido arrancarme sin cumplir su palabra. Pero bueno, mira, he podido aguantar el ataque y al final en el sprint le he podido ganar, pero no me ha gustado, la verdad.
So for the 2nd time in as many days, the order at the top had changed. Contador was now 2nd, 2 minutes 23 behind Rasmussen. Evans had slipped to 3rd, his deficit up from 1 minute to 3:04. And Levi Leipheimer had leapfrogged, or possibly leapfrogged, Andreas Kloden into 4th place. And that was just the first day in the Pyrenees. For the rest day, the riders had to tackle the 2nd.